So I just wrapped up doing the weekly call that I do with Melanie Curtis, and we talked about positive self-talk. So definitely check that out if you haven't seen any of the conversations I do with Melanie. They are awesome. And I found it really helpful to do a Facebook Live right after I do that, because there's a lot of things that stop me from doing Facebook Lives, being set up, not having makeup on. So this is good. So I wanted to tape the kind of blog that I did this week about anger, because anger is natural. We are human. We're all going to experience anger. And there's this fabulous Taoist quote about how the best fighter is never angry. So how do we deal with our anger in a constructive way? How do we keep our anger from being destructive in our life? And how do we hold ourselves to this high standard if we are going into a fight, which many of us are dealing with a lot of the things that are going on in our country and our world right now, and definitely feel like we need to fight for what we believe is right? How do we do that as effectively as possible in the face of understandable anger? So here's the deal. As a kid, there was a lot of anger in my house. I got angry. I was a very kind of fiery person, and I would get angry, and people in my family, my parents, would get angry. And so anger was something that I definitely had a lot of exposure to when I was a kid. And it gave me the opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do about my own anger. I definitely knew that when I got angry, I tended to make poor choices and make a mess of things. And I know that when my parents were angry, it was scary. It was often unpredictable. There was definitely harsh words that would be said when someone was angry at me that didn't feel good. Sometimes there'd be harsh hands in our house. So anger, I knew, was something that was scary. And as I got older, I had to figure out how to deal with my fear around anger and how to deal constructively with my own anger. I couldn't just pretend that I wasn't angry, because I didn't want to be angry, didn't make it that I wasn't angry. It just kind of repressed it, and it was incredibly unhealthy. So learning, one, to hold space for my own anger, that anger is natural, it's healthy, and that if I'm feeling anger, I need to hold space for that and allow myself to be angry, to just be like, yeah, I am angry right now. So our feelings, whether it's anger, whether it's guilt, whatever we're feeling, our feelings are our feelings. Our feelings are never wrong. So whether it's for ourselves or for parents helping teach our children, that whatever we're feeling, those feelings aren't wrong. And we need to hold space for those feelings. We need to love our feelings. Even if our brain is like, wait, I don't want to be angry right now. Of course, I don't love that I'm angry. If you're angry, love that. That will then give you the maneuvering room to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? Because the problem isn't that we feel angry. Feeling angry is natural and it's going to happen. The problem is when we act out of anger. Because when we act out of anger, we're actually kind of in our lower brain, kind of our reptilian brain, where we don't have kind of access to the higher cognitive functioning to make good choices. And that's often called aggressive reactivity, that we're reacting in this aggressive way. And that's not well thought out action. It's not looking at a larger goal. We make a mess of things when we are reactively aggressive. So how do we hold space for feeling angry without acting out of that anger? And part of the skill here is being like, all right, well, why am I angry? When I'm feeling angry, I ask myself, whoa, I'm feeling angry right now. One, being aware that I'm feeling a certain way. So being aware of your feelings is really important. But then asking yourself, this is interesting that I'm feeling angry, not being mad at myself that I'm angry, right? Not feeling bad on top of anger, right? To say, I'm angry. Why am I angry right now? Because research shows, like, sometimes we're angry because there's pain, like there's something that's hurt, something that we're afraid of, we're in fight or flight. But oftentimes we're angry because we're frustrated, right? So when we're feeling angry, we want to assess why it is that we're angry and figure out what our next best move is. Anger, when we kind of are spurred into have this kind of aggressive reactivity, the only time that is appropriate or helpful is when there's an imminent physical threat. So if we're being attacked physically, anger gives us this adrenaline rush, gives us this power to fight off whatever the physical threat is. That's the only time that reactive aggressive, like that kind of reaction, is helpful. Most of the time when we're feeling angry, there is not an immediate physical threat. And acting out of that kind of reactive aggression is not going to be of service. It's not going to be helpful. It's going to make a mess of things. So we need to figure out how to deal with our anger and then constructively respond. So by taking the time to, one, name what it is that we're feeling. Like, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling sad. Whatever it is we're feeling, take the time to name it. Just by naming your feeling, you're actually moving out of kind of the lower reactive part of your brain into kind of the higher kind of prefrontal cortex part of your brain. That will help you make good decisions around your feelings. So first, name what it is that you're feeling. And then there's a skill that's from DBT. It's the THINK acronym. So that is the next skill that we can do around our feelings to help us make good choices. So the THINK skill, I'm going to bring it up because when I'm doing a live video, I can't think clearly. Think. So T is think about the situation from another perspective. So the story that I gave in the blog was around someone being late or not showing up to dinner. So suppose you cook this dinner and someone doesn't show up and you're angry that they didn't show up. It's disrespectful, it's inconsiderate. So the first part of think, the T, is to think about the situation from another perspective. Like, you can't know all the different angles on how or why they didn't show up. H is have empathy for the other person kind of involved in the situation. Because someone that you invited to dinner, you wouldn't have invited them to dinner if they weren't a good person, if they weren't a friend. So of course they're going to feel bad. Either right now they don't realize they missed dinner, or they're stuck somewhere feeling awful. But of course, we want to empathize that they're going to feel really bad, that they hurt our feelings too, because they're a good person, or hopefully we wouldn't have invited them to dinner, right? I, interpretations. Come up with a few possible different interpretations of what is happening. So when someone doesn't show up, we could interpret it that they're disrespectful, that they don't care about us, they don't appreciate us. Or it could be that they're stuck somewhere and their cell phone died and they're feeling awful, but they can't reach out to us right now. And we're going to find out soon what's going on. But we want to think about different possible interpretations, because that will help us kind of bring our emotional reactivity down and be calm and clear in how we respond to the situation. N, this is really important. N stands for notice. Notice how the other person has acted positively in the past. Because in that moment when we're really frustrated, aka angry that they didn't show up for dinner, we're not naturally going to be thinking about and noticing the positive things that they've done for us in the past. Again, we wouldn't have invited someone to dinner, hopefully, that we didn't have some positive vibe around, something that they've done positive, that they showed us that they cared, that they showed us that they were a good friend. So in that moment, when we start to get angry, remember to notice positives as opposed to just being stuck on the negative in the moment. And then K, from the think, is kindness. Choose to act kindly. Whatever the situation is, when they finally call, when you finally hear from them, act kindly. Start that kind of first interaction with kindness, and that will help empower us to move through the situation with as much grace and with as much constructive energy as possible. Because in the situation that I gave around someone being late for dinner, you think about what your goal is, right? Like, what is our big goal with someone coming to dinner? Our goal is to have deep, healthy, intimate relationship with someone, right? Like, if you invite someone to dinner, it's because you care about them. You want to have, a friendship, a closeness, a healthy relationship. If we don't act kindly, we are not moving towards that goal, right? If we act out of anger, we're going to be working against what our big goal is. So the name think skill is a concrete skill that you can use to help in the moment when you're feeling angry. So, oh yes, it doesn't cost anything to be kind. Yes, kindness always helps us achieve our big goals in life. And there's this common misconception that by being kind, you're making yourself more vulnerable. You're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of, and it weakens you. Like, to be kind, you're weak. Like, kindness is a sign of weakness, and it's the exact opposite. When we are kind, we are demonstrating our strength. And we are putting ourselves in the best possible situation to get positivity back, literally, right? It's not like we're suddenly vulnerable and someone can take advantage of us because we're taking the time to be kind. It's the exact opposite. So that's the 5 second on anger And then when it comes to fighting, like if we have to go into a fight, if there is something that is so worth fighting for, which there's a lot going on in this country right now where we definitely hopefully feel like there are things that are worth fighting for and standing up for, the calmer and clearer that we can be going into that fight, the more strategic and tactical we can be, the more effective we're going to be in reaching our big goal. Whatever our big goals are, and take the time to think about, what are your big goals here? If your goal is safety and respect and harmony and peace and love, those are my goals, right? That's what I'm thinking about as the end game. And hopefully we are all thinking about, what is the end game that we're looking for in any fight, right? Because oftentimes we go into a fight coming from this place of woundedness, that we want revenge, we're angry. That is going to end up in a lower place than we start. Anytime we're going into a fight out of a wound, we're weak. So we want to go into a fight whole, empowered, really clear what our end goal to make the place or make the world or make the situation better. We're never going into a fight, hopefully trying to make things worse. And that's what we're doing if we're coming out of a place of woundedness. So, I'm all peace and love, and I really do deeply care and respect everybody. I don't think that I'm better than anyone else. I don't think anybody's better than anybody else. I think we're all coming at this humanity thing from different perspectives. But ultimately, we are all connected in a more deeper and meaningful way than we could ever perceive with our eyes or our hands or our senses. So that's why I always encourage people to try to hang out in your heart, because that's where you can really, as the little prince says, see rightly. So thanks so much for listening. I'm always here for any questions or comments, and I really appreciate it. Lots of love.